6477 3977 King County 206477 3977 Public Health 206477 3977 King County 206477 3977 Public Community Radio Station will provide you with more information. Say Rainier Avenue Radio. Your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Join Rainier Avenue Radio from 5 to midnight for Sunday evening sound sessions. Jazz from the cabinets from Big Poppy.
That's right. It's time once again for Jazz from the cabinets.
Sergio LaCour's Love Line.
It's Sergio's Love Lines with Sergio LaCour. Go to the phone line. Tell her who we talking to.
Sage Prince, Just My Opinion.
This is Sage, and that's just about going to do it for the first half of Just My Opinion.
K-Fox Night Beat with Nasty Ness Rodriguez.
It's the beat of the Fox. K-Fox Night Beat, Nasty Ness.
You know what? You're going to listen from 5 to midnight. Just turn it on and don't stop. DJ Alibaba. The underground surround sound start time. Paul Pinch.
Tuning in. My name is Paul Pearson.
Sunday evening sound sessions on Rainier Avenue Radio. Trust me, you'll be listening the entire time from 5 to midnight. Sunday evening, your sound session on Rainier Avenue Radio.
On Rainier Avenue Radio.world, look for the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show. I'm Dennis Weaver, your good food guide and host, helping you to feel good and look good. And who wouldn't want some of that? All that and more from the Change Your Food, Change Your Life show on Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Stories, songs, and guests. Begin living the organic good food life, and the rest of your life be the best of your life. Always up, baby, to your help.
Love food? Here are some storage tips to keep it fresh longer. Store cut fruits and vegetables in the fridge. Place in reusable containers. Keep bread in the freezer for longer storage. 40% of food in the U.S. goes uneaten. Save money, save food, save the planet. Visit Seattle Public Utilities for more tips.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not driving my sweet AMC Pacer through the car wash, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world. You missed a spot.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And you see the top of our heads, probably. This is Juan Cotto and Mick Hoffman, who is the executive director. It really is us, by the way, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. Thank you, Daniel. And we are on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, where today we are picking up where we left off. And Mick, it is so good to see you, my friend. And it's been a little while.
It's been a bit, yeah.
To our engaging folks out there who follow us regularly, thank you very much. We had a lot of fun in our time off. At least I did. Mick, tell us a little bit about what you were up to.
Actually, got to spend a lot of time at home, just kind of low key and getting some work done. I'm on the road most of the time, so it was nice to be able to see the family for an extended amount of time. I don't know how they felt about it, but it worked out great for me.
It probably felt pretty good. Same for me. I got a chance to go. For those that follow me on Facebook, I was down in New Orleans, went to Austin, Texas, visited my good friend, Dr. Glenn Tanner, and we drove all the way to New Orleans to see the University of Washington, then led by Kalen DeBoer and Michael Penix, play a phenomenal football game against the Texas Longhorns, and they were able to get by that football game the fourth quarter, and specifically the last few minutes got a little touch and go there. And it was funny because, we're getting a little older now. Glenn wasn't feeling too good leaving the stadium. And we were calling friends in Seattle. They were like, thank goodness we didn't go down there. We didn't know we'd make it out. And I spent the week in Austin, Texas, and then we went down to Houston to watch the national championship game. It seemed like they had just a little bit of a slow start. The Huskies got behind and could not catch up to the University of Michigan Wolverines, led by Jim Harbaugh. And now the landscape of coaching in college and professional football has changed dramatically. I get off the plane, and Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll has been let go, and he's given a press conference that I'm listening to on the train ride back to South, back down to Leshai. The next day, Kalen DeBoer is rumored to be leaving to the University of Alabama, where 2 days later he was introduced as the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And then just this last week, Jim Harbaugh is now the head coach of the San Diego Chargers, and those guys are all making some moolah.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
But we here are working on high school athletics, as you know, and we talked about that last year. Our love and passion for this game matches their love and passion for it. But Mick, I know we've talked about this before. Do you think about just the business and entertainment industry that college football and professional football have become in our country?
I mean, yeah, it's completely changed the college landscape. From conferences imploding to the money that's out there to the transfer and students making money playing. I mean, it's huge business, and everybody's getting their piece of the pie or working to get their piece of the pie. And if nothing else, we're learning how to be adaptive and change. And the old days of loyalty and ride or die, those things have changed, and it's just kind of the world we live in now. And we're seeing it play out right before our very eyes with some very impactful people in our own city.
And all of this too, we've obviously had the Huskies lose some people who, with the NIL, they're going to go play at different schools next year. Seems like it's opened it up for the players. I believe in what was Kalen DeBoer's recruiting class back in December, there were no in-state players from the University of Washington. I grew up here where Don James and Mike Price and there's so many of the Cougar coaches. They were fighting for in-state players. You wanted to set up a fence around your state. And now that with the NIL and the transfer portal, it seems like they are so busy looking and scouring the country for players through the portal that the high school players are kind of like a secondary part of the recruiting now.
Yeah, hearing more and more how the NIL money goes to transfers, not necessarily for scholarship players coming in first year. It's kind of the Yankee Dodger model, right? Go have a small core and go get your free agents and outspend and get some breaks going your way. So yeah, I mean, college sports at that level at least has really become a professional entity.
You mentioned the topic of loyalty, and you mentioned and certainly friends of mine who follow the University of Washington and other schools in general throughout the country. We're amazed at the turnover of athletes and the ability for them to leave. Many college athletes I've spoken to have told me, "Hey, Juan, look, the college coaches, they're not bound by anything. If they want to take a new job, they can go. Why shouldn't the players be able to transfer and go to new schools?" And theoretically, I get it. Do you see this seeping down to the high school level? I mean, are we going to see kids transferring and moving around to different schools to showcase their talents if they believe it's a better situation for them?
Yeah, you must be listening in on our meetings because we just had our winter coalition where we have 28 new amendments up. One of them was regarding transfer to get this very conversation started. So we're pulling together a statewide committee to take a look at it, because we're seeing in some states, Florida, they can transfer season to season. Other ones, they get a one-time free hop. Currently in Washington, our students can pick any school as ninth graders. After their ninth grade year, they're locked in there unless their family moves or there's a hardship, which is defined. It's a grueling process for everybody, the students, the families, the athletic directors, to do that. So there's conversation about do we look at something more liberal than what we have now? And it's a mixed emotions at the high school level. As you can imagine, it's a major mind shift. So we'll see what that committee comes up with and if any amendments hit the floor next year.
It's been such an interesting time in terms of the athletic landscape and the conversations that we have here at the high school level. And just
Juan and Nick,
it's yes, sir.
I'm temporarily interrupting your podcast. We're taking a tour of the Cotto Conscious Museum, and this is where the South Seattle Emerald will set up right now. This is a broadcast of the WIAA Primetime Weekly show with Mick Hoffman, who is the executive director of the WIAA, and Juan Cotto, a leader in our community, was recently one of the 8 finalists for a Seattle City Council position. And so
And on-air personality at Rainier Avenue Radio.
And on-air personality at Rainier Avenue Radio. So we're going to take the tour, but this is for the South City. No one is that this way. So I just interrupted you guys' attention.
That's okay.
You're the boss. You get to do that.
It's Tony B's world, baby.
Started this process. Rainier Avenue Radio is producing this museum, and we have over 80 shows hosted or produced by members of our community. One of which is WIAA Primetime Weekly, which is broadcasting live right now.
Come closer to the mic. There you go. We have a camera crew in here this afternoon, and they are shooting pictures of us. I hope I don't break your camera. I didn't comb my hair this morning, but pleasure to have you here at Rainier Avenue Radio. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Tony, this is Tony B's world, baby. Thank you very much for stopping by. But as I was alluding to, are we going to see, does this really, in my opinion, and I'd love to hear yours, this really elevates the high school experience, doesn't it?
Help me.
In terms of the fact that this is really that the high school experience should be the last true bastion for young people before they now go into this business. I mean, I've seen young people who are transferring from Division II schools now to Division I schools, and I played at an NAIA school. I also saw players who were offered scholarships from NAIA schools. So it just seems now that the business of sports at the college level, to me, it would make what we do at the high school so much more important.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's about as close to true amateur sports as we have left. And, you know, the thing that's so exciting about high school athletics is it's community-based, whether it's, you know, your high school in an urban setting or your high school in a rural setting. There's this rally. You have alumni. You have people who still live in that area that come and support. And, you know, I hope we never lose that. And if we end up with a more transient population, then, you know, it's really hard to, you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens with college football over the next few years when they have to go back and those contracts are up in 25, 26, 27. And do all those schools still get included? Or they continue to peel off that top echelon and send everybody back to more of a regional base. And, you know, in the meantime, we're going to keep doing what we're doing, supporting our students wherever they're at. And yeah, I mean, it's for what it costs to go to a game now, right? As you know, and the opportunity that you get to see talent. I went out to the Bellevue Liberty game last night. Former player of mine said, "Hey, coach, I want to take my son to his first high school game. Will you go?" So I showed up. We met for dinner and went to the game. And I mean, it was great entertainment. And I think I paid $8 a ticket to get in. So we can't beat that.
And just and obviously as a coach, and you just referenced it. I mean, it has always been so exciting. My young player, Eric Anderson, when he played at Washington State, and they came and played in the Apple Cup, and he was wearing his number 17, and I didn't care that he didn't play. I mean, you saw local kids. You know, you got to see Eason from Lake Stevens playing quarterback for the Huskies, and you know, even more recently, Mish Powell from O'Day High School, grew up in the Central area, intercepts the passers at Arizona State, and you know, 75,000 people cheering from a man who grew up 4 miles away from the stadium, and we were seeing local kids. Hopefully, we're going to still be able to see local kids playing sports in front of the local fans.
Yeah, you sure hope so. I mean, that's what it's about. I mean, you think about anything, you want people who love you to watch you, to support you. And, you know, watching it online is great, but watching it in person and being able to give them a hug after a game and all that, there's something special about that. And just saying, hey, I was here for you, and thank you for doing what you do. They represent you and what you stand for. So, yeah, it's going to be, I mean, next few years are going to be critical, I think, at the high school space, as well as what happens at that collegiate / professional level now.
Well, we are back. Juan and Mick are back, and we're going to be touching on some of the most important issues in high school athletics today, or of the day. But just before that, we are going to be really have some exciting opportunities coming up at your community radio station, our community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world this Saturday. And this is one that I'm extremely excited about, because I think so much we think about Ezel's chicken as this big snack in the building right across from Garfield, and you go get something to eat. And I know my son and I go up there and my family, and we have been entertained and enjoy that so much. But this is an iconic business in our community. And obviously going back to the stories with Oprah Winfrey, when she first had her first taste of Ezel's and had to have chicken shipped out to Chicago for her, we cannot thank enough the incredible business that his has been in our community. And this is their 40th anniversary celebration. It just seems like it was yesterday when they opened up that shop across from Garfield High School on the corner of 23rd and Jefferson. And we are having a celebration with them right here at the Columbia City Theater. That's going to be 1 o'clock on Saturday. We will be broadcasting and celebrating this iconic institution, which is really known almost internationally. And they've had a wonderful career and so many people that they've impacted through their work and through their success. And I know that whenever local inner city community organizations have needed support, Ezel's Chicken has stepped up. So we're looking forward to celebrating them on Saturday, 1 o'clock. And if you come by right here, I bet there's going to be a sample of chicken or two in the building. And then obviously, this is called a Conscious Black History Month. We are opening up Thursday at 11 a.m. And every day for the month of February from 11 o'clock a.m. to 7 p.m. So reverse the store. It's 11 to 7. And we are going to have the Call to Conscious Black History Museum. And Tony Benton does some incredible things. He finds some really, really cool things to show and put on display. And it's going to be so much fun. And we've got a host of community folks who are going to be supporting us. So we hope you will bring, and I know that Sarah and I will bring our children to come and learn more about the community which they are growing up in and have a tie to that legacy. So come on down here and participate in those activities. Mick, we're going to talk about safety, the safety message in high school athletics. And we're going to ask some questions about making sure that the kids who are participating in athletics are safe. And this has been a conversation that a lot of parents have brought up to us over the years to ensure the safety and ensure that if their kids are injured, that they are back on the road to recovery and all those questions that come along with that. And first, student safety is a top priority in high school athletics. Can you provide an overview of the comprehensive safety measures in place for student athletes in the state of Washington?
Yeah, a large piece of it is just the general rules that our coaches have to follow as part of their education. So they take heat illness, concussion training, general first aid, CPR. So all coaches are required to have that by rule. In addition, some schools will go even beyond that. A lot of schools are able to secure athletic trainers. Unfortunately, there's way more demand than there is supply in that. So we're actually, working on some options. I think we'll talk about that one probably later. The other piece is that we partner with doctors from around, medical professionals from around the state in our Sports Medicine Advisory Committee, and they advise us on medical topics in general. So we meet with them 3-4 times a year, run any proposed rule changes that could potentially impact safety by them, as well as just talk about general practices. So we've created a template for emergency action plans for every school to be able to use that they would be able to fill out if they don't have one themselves. We partnered with the OSPI on that. So I think that's one of the major things that separates, WIAA sanctioned or education-based activities from club sports is that is a priority, and there's an emphasis and there's resources put into that. In addition to participate, students need to have some type of insurance. So
how does it feel to be back? It feels good to be back and hear this man's voice, Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the WIAA on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Mick, how are safety protocols developed, updated, and communicated to a coach, athletes, and parents to ensure that consistent information is being given around what could potentially happen during a situation where there's an emergency?
Yeah, so schools, when the students sign up, there's a ream of paper that they fill out. And hopefully people, especially the first time they're filling it out for their students, are reading them.
Hang on one second. It's a ream of paper. As a football coach, it was a ream of paper, but never mind.
So it talks about a lot of the actual physical risks involved in a variety of sports that they might want to play. just make people aware. We want, your most precious possession, right, is going to do that, your child. So we want to make sure that parents have as much information as possible. They have to have a sports physical to get cleared. A lot of that now is a lot of doctors are including a heart screening with that to try to pick up to avoid any kind of sudden cardiac incidents. And then they go out and play, and coaches are trained certain sports, football, for example, cheer, dance, anything where they're lifting students in the air, pole vault. There's special training, hands-on training that coaches go through by WIAA rule just for that, to make sure they're everything from fitting a helmet and shoulder pads properly to how to tackle is included in that. And so there's we have hydration rules, weight descent rules for wrestling that have to be followed. And so there's a lot of mechanisms, and those are developed, one, through the National Federation of High Schools. So every state gets to have a representative on there, and that's where our national rulemaking body comes from. And then we run everything through our Sports Medicine Advisory Committee as well, which are the same doctors working with the Huskies and the Seahawks and Eastern Washington, Seattle Children's, athletic trainers. So we are very, very fortunate to have people who want to engage with us on providing safe protocol. So that's really the rule development and process development.
And how often is that updated? I mean, do you guys take it year by year? You take it every 3 years and take a look at what needs to be updated? Because sometimes, at least in my experience, some of the rules may not match the different types of experiences that the coaches are going through. So do we sit down and we look at those different types of opportunities and make those changes?
Yeah, it's truly is an ongoing process. NFHS has their meeting annually. And then, like I said, our sports committee meets 3 to 4 times a year, depending on availability of the doctors. And then our office working with our ADs. So in the last few years, we've instituted more structural meetings. So, for example, we've talked about how we're divided into 9 regions. There's a district director in each one of those. And we meet with them monthly, right? Just kind of hot topics like what's going on, updates. We meet with our league presidents seasonally to talk about that. So there's a lot of input from the membership if they're running into challenges that we're unaware of in the office. So it gives us a chance to solicit a lot of information, and then we go to work from there.
I know as myself as a coach, the opportunity to practice a lot of these things is important. You want to be prepared, and you also want to let the parents know that I'm just not some guy off the street coaching their kids, and I care very deeply. I always tried to make sure that my coaches came to the training, especially CPR, first aid, make sure that we knew how to do the basic fundamentals, and also set things up until and either the trainers got there or the emergency team. Sometimes we had to have the first aid people come in the cars. And I'm just wondering what types of training is available to the coaches to make sure that they're prepared for an emergency, and then how do they practice those things out?
Yeah, so on the NFHS Learn site, there's a lot of free ones in addition to what we provide. And what's really cool now, in the last couple of years, we've partnered with an organization, Final Forms. So all schools have access to this to track their coaches' education. And then we've worked with the companies. So I've learned some tech for a non-tech guy, these APIs, right? So basically a translator from one software program to another. It feeds this dashboard. So an AD can get online and look to see if their coaches have all their required training in or not. And all that training is free for the most part for coaches, in addition to additional training they could or may be interested in. And then we offer a coach's school to make sure they meet all their requirements at a very low cost to coaches. They can get 5 hours of training for like $65, and the schools typically pay for that. And then there's a lot of the other trainings that are free. Before every season, a coach has to take an online training specific to rule changes, so they're aware of any rule changes. And then we also put some health and safety information in there as well. So coaches are inundated really with information. There's really should be no reason a coach is unaware of a rule change or a safety measure that's in place.
There was a movie about a decade ago, and about Dr. Barrett Omulu, who found a situation with brain tissue of athletes who had participated playing in the National Football League. And certainly there were a couple of high-profile tragedies suicides that occurred from what we now know as CTE. And we saw the lives of Junior Seau, Dave Dewerson, the free safety from the University of Notre Dame, who was a star for the Chicago Bears on that 1985 team. And we had started to really look at this whole situation around concussions. And I speak freely about it as a football coach. A lot of coaches don't like to discuss it. I think it's important that we discuss it. Absolutely. I think it's important that it's one of those things that is a part of our great game, and it is a great game. And we want kids to go out there and be physical. At the same time, we want to train them up, because this is something. And I remember parents used to ask me, what can we do to prevent this? And I said, I would never tell you that we can prevent it. It's a physical contact game. But what I want to do is make sure that your kids are as safe as possible. And I would 10 years ago, I remember Dr. Stan Herring and the work that they were doing to educate all of us as coaches and people who participated in this particular game. But we also know from even sports such as cheerleading, there were a number of concussions. And I was just wondering, from the state of Washington, because we were in the forefront of this conversation, a decade later, 12 years later, how do we measure out? Have we gotten this message out to a point where we've been able to make some changes for the better?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, Dr. Stan Herring led that work, like you said, along with the Lysted family, the Zach's situation. And WI supported that. And we were one of the first states to have actually a concussion rule. And essentially what the law says is, if anybody suspects a head injury, right, any type of potential head injury, you pull the student immediately. And there's only 5 specific medical professionals that can clear that student to go back in. So as a coach, I can't have take a kid off and say, "You all right?" Yeah. And said, no, there's 5 medical professionals. So a trainer being one of them, and different nurses, and then medical doctors. Since then, there's been a new one. We had a tragedy up here in the Highline School District a few years ago. Young man who was lost to a second syndrome. And, that's really the concern, is it's that second syndrome where they're not fully recovered and they get dinged again. And that law went into effect, which we worked with to support the Bowie rule. And that law essentially says, if you can't go doctor shopping, right? So if you are my athletic trainer that I see and you're the one who holds me out, you are the one who has to clear me, right? I can't go to another doctor or someone else. And so it tightened up the return to play procedures, and schools have done a great job embracing this. I was at the game I was at last night. A kid went down. I couldn't tell from where I was sitting in the stands if he hit his head or not. The officials, you could tell they're looking at each other wondering. And as the kid was walking up the floor, they were watching him. And I saw the one official kind of tap his head and point at the kid. They took him out. They seated him down. Athletic trainer went, did her job, and off they went. And so it's become part of our normal practice, which is exactly where it should be. And if there's not a medical professional at that contest, the student sits. There is no game more important than the student's health.
I tell you, this has gone so much faster than a public forum for the city council. Wow. We are going to go on break, and we will come back and continue this conversation on the health and safety of our athletes on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not translating the lyrics of Boogie Oogie Oogie for bored Europeans, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Generational wealth. Generational wealth. Generational wealth. What is generational wealth? We asked our communities,
and this is what they had to
When
say.
I think about generational wealth, I think about history. I think about the history of exploitation, what led us to today. Some people live a certain socioeconomic way, and the majority does not get to live in that same way. Perhaps they don't want to live that way. I don't know.
Generational wealth has some really strong positives and some really strong negatives. At its best, it's ways that communities can grow, find security for themselves. It's a way to make sure that your children and their children and each generation thereafter has opportunities to find joy and growth and make a difference in the world.
This campaign to create awareness to generational wealth is brought to you by the Department of Neighborhoods Generational Wealth Initiative, the Washington Housing Finance Commission, and Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
Welcome to the Fitness Corner. I'm your host, Mark Bryant, and you're going to get a whole total body workout on my show, starting off with a warm-up, aerobics, strength training, cool down, and stretching every Friday from 11:30 to 12 right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.
The beat of the Fox with nastiness is back on K-Fox Night Beat.
Yo, what's the deal? It's the legendary Hall of Fame DJ Mixmaster Ice UTFO.
What's up? Who you thought this is? This is Sir Mix-a-Lot.
And this is Terry Lewis.
And I'm Grand Mixer GMS.
What's up, y'all? This is DJ Third Degree.
This is JJ Hudson from the High Children family.
Sunday nights from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's K-Fox Night Beat with DJ Nastiness.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing back the memories.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music.
Bringing Seattle's hottest music. Rainier Avenue Radio .world.
That's not noise.
Peace.
Did you know that there's an updated COVID-19 booster that protects you even more than the original vaccines? Even if you got the first vaccinations, now it's time to get this new updated booster shot. It's especially important for adults 50 and over and people with a compromised immune system. Even though you may not hear about people catching COVID as often, each week in King County, some people even end up in the hospital because of it. So check with your loved ones and make sure they've gotten an updated booster. For more information on where to get a COVID vaccine, including free vaccination resources, visit kingcounty.gov/vaccines. kingcounty.gov/vaccines.
Rainier Avenue Radio, your community radio station will provide you with more information. Rainier Avenue Radio.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Juan Cotto and Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, touching bases with you live from the Columbia City Theater, the home of Rainier Avenue Radio, and always a pleasure to come back here. So exciting to be doing the show live. I think you've seen us in hologram the last several weeks, but it is actually us today, and good to be back. And before we go into the show, and we're talking about the health and safety of athletics, a couple of things we want to bring to your attention. Black History Month is coming up here in February. Rainier Avenue Radio, Tony B. We take this very seriously here. The Call the Conscious Black History Museum. And as I said earlier, Tony B does a phenomenal job of getting a lot of exhibits and getting information to just share with the community. Sarah and I bring the kids out. It's really important for them to connect with the legacy of our city. So a number of fantastic sponsors and folks are going to be donating information. You'll learn a lot about Black Seattle and then the Black Seattle of the past. Bring your family on out. It's open every day from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., the Call to Conscious Black History Museum. And then, of course, as we said earlier, more than just a snack shop, this is one of the most iconic businesses in our community. And certainly the folks, the two gentlemen in mind, and I just mentioned Ezel and just great guys, have had a wonderful community spirit. They have supported so many in the community. 40 years. And I'm getting to a point in history and time in my own life where, geez, I can remember where I was 40 years ago. And man, I just remember when Ezel's opened up over there on 23rd and Jefferson across from Garfield High School, and the impact that Ezel's has had in our community in so many different ways. And hope you come and celebrate. We're doing a celebration, 40th anniversary celebration right here, Columbia City Theater, 4916 Rainier Avenue South. and come and celebrate with us, because this is one that we really need to celebrate and take note of what they've been able to accomplish over the last 4 decades. Back to Mick Hoffman here on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We are looking at the equipment. So much equipment, and if you watch the NFL games now, there's a variety of different helmets. Used to be just, I remember Rydell and Shutt. Now there are so many different types of helmets, and there's so many different shapes of helmets. There are venting in the helmets now. They've gone to a situation where they've actually made football helmets lighter. In other sports, they're using ways to protect various aspects of the body, and not only the head, but certainly different ways that we can look at protecting the athletes. The shoes are remarkably different, and as a parent, they're remarkably expensive, but they also have safety in place mouthpieces. Now, let's talk a little about the equipment and what the WIAA does to ensure that the equipment, number one, is not only legal for the sport, but is safe and productive for the kids.
Yeah, again, that's where we really rely on the National Federation of High Schools. They do a lot of that work with the general rules. So, for example, helmets, and this is in baseball and even fast pitch now, is getting them recertified every year, where the NOXI has a process to where they test helmets, send them in, clean them up, repair them. Ours is more around how you use the equipment than the preparation. School districts get to choose what equipment they want to use, which helmets they approve and they don't. Most school districts belong to one of 2 risk management groups, so there's a lot of experts in that area. We don't really have the expertise in the office. We wouldn't want to be there, so we rely on our partners to do that. And then our job is really what equipment can be used in there, whether it's anything from earrings and nose rings and that to casts or hard implements that students are using. And so we get into that sometimes, where we have to navigate again, trying, there's some cultural needs that need to be met. And so that's really where we get into trying to decipher the intent of rules as opposed to just the black and white of them, to make sure that if it's something that we can allow that's safe, that we're going to do that to honor the students' wishes.
Mick, I remember 10 years ago, before concussions, when in my first stint with Hoover Hopkins up at Nathan Hale High School, there was a conversation about a bacterial thing called MRSA. And they showed all these pictures on the internet, and you had these kids who were losing skin and muscle, and the bacteria was going in and wasting away. And we had to go in and make sure that everything was clean in the locker room, clean the kids off. And there was thought that because the fields were not biodegradable, because the natural dirt and grass, we had this new synthetic turf with rubber in it, and this was bad. But it seems like we've been able to. I haven't heard about MRSA in several years, and I'm just wondering, in regards to the those types of things in terms of bacterial infections and the cleanliness of locker rooms, where are we at in regards to that?
Yeah, the hygiene is really important. I mean, it's really more of our indoor close contact sports, wrestling. They're really good about cleaning their mats on a regular basis. They have protocols for transitioning, their buckets and mops and making sure those stay clean. Football coaches making sure the kids are taking their gear out of their locker room, getting it out, getting it clean, and not having it sit in there all season. So it's a lot of that. Schools in general, especially going through COVID, if nothing else, really learned how to disinfect and clean, and found, there are more chemicals. There's stuff that can disperse in the air now to hit those contact spots, high contact spots, to kill potential transferable diseases. So there's a lot more tools at schools' expense. And so, our rules, we do skin checks in wrestling. If there's blood, there's protocols for how that's cleaned up, who cleans that up. People have gotten a lot better. Back in the day when I was coaching, a kid was bleeding, you just pinch it shut, you got him in there, you helped him out. And now what we've learned about how, one more prevalent Hep is, and then how easy it's transferable, that there's a lot more caution, a lot more training around that in our first aid. So
you touched on this topic earlier, and sometimes in Washington State, we do get affected by this. It just depends upon the time of the year. It's certainly not right now, although it is a little warmer, but heat-related illnesses. And I say that jokingly, when I came back from Texas, man, it was a little chilly over here, but nevertheless, we do. I know during football season and certainly during summer conditioning and so forth. I mean, the temperatures can get up into the 90s, and there's been times where we've had practices in August that have been in the hundreds, and then obviously with the reflection, the heat reflecting off of the turf. I mean, I saw a thermometer one time of 122 degrees on a field that I was practicing on, and we know how we knew that we had to make sure that the kids were hydrated. We, really sat down and talked to make sure that they were safe during the practices. That sun wasn't going anywhere. And I'm wondering, how have we looked at it? I'm sure it's a part of the protocol, but in terms of situations where we do have a heat related situation, how do we deal with that? And I also let's talk a little about the smoke and the safety during the summer times where we've had forest fires and we've had smoke throughout the state and dealing with those situations.
Yeah, I mean, really, with the heat index, the spring can be really dangerous because we're in this kind of weather, and then all of a sudden we get that spike where we get 80, 90, 100 degrees. It doesn't have to be 120 to be dangerous for somebody. And so we partner with the smoke and with heat illness with different agencies that actually provide an index that coach can go in and to a map that's available through our website and find out the range of the smoke or find out the range of the heat index, and then possibly know whether it's safe to practice outdoors, indoors, or shut it completely down. We also, Justin Kessler in our office pursued a grant a couple years ago, and he was able to secure us 200 wet bulb globes that we were able to disperse around the state to help schools that would actually be able to, get the information they need on site right there. And so our goal is to get another 200 of those to finish, get them to all schools and all environments. But we targeted areas that are more susceptible than others for that distribution. So
this is your community radio station. This is our community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, celebrating our seventh year, Daniel. Daniel will correct me if I'm wrong, and I'll get that right. But nevertheless, we are back on the air. This is the second year that we've done this gentleman and I, Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. This is our second year doing this show together, and we've been able to have conversations about what's going on in high school athletics throughout the state of Washington, and we appreciate Mick taking the time with his incredibly busy schedule to spend a little bit of time with us to talk about this. I remember my days back at Highline High School trying to get a bus sometimes after school, trying to get a bus to a JV game, trying to get a bus to a varsity game. And obviously the buses, and a lot of people don't know this, sometimes in certain districts, they are tied to getting kids home from school. So sometimes they can have it set up so you can have a bus that goes out to Hazen. Other times you may have to wait a few minutes to get that bus out to Hazen. You can cut it really close. And sometimes some parents, if they are available, and then obviously if they've been certified by our district, and drive the kids out there. And I know there were some very nervous moments for our coaches and kids getting them point to point. I'm just wondering, how do the districts deal with transporting athletes from point to point to make sure they get to the games and deal with the situation with all of the scheduling around buses that are needed to take kids, home from school?
Yeah, and the preference is put them on a bus. One of the safest places a student can be is at school or on a school bus, just from the way they're built and the protocols in place. So that's always the preference. With the shortage of drivers, it's a national shortage. That's very difficult. So we've actually had quite a few, especially sub-varsity games canceled. Not so much this year. Seems to be getting a little bit better, but lots of games canceled because of lack of transportation. So schools are starting to go out and buy some vans, small buses. Coaches are driving more often. Which, with the right training is also effective. And in some cases, they're having to rely on parents and students. And, most of them, I'm assuming, do some type of check on driving record and all that to put them in there. Because, again, when we're trying, no game is more important than student safety. So there's a lot of creative ways of doing it. Back 15 years ago, 10 years ago, not taking a school bus was a real fight internally because of the unions. Like, they wanted that work for their drivers, and now there's just not enough drivers. They got plenty of buses, they don't have enough drivers. And so until we can fill that need, schools are gonna have to keep being creative.
mental health, and we've talked about this before, and obviously such an important part of American society, especially coming out of the pandemic. Seems like we have moved further and further away from the stigma of mental health, and we're having more conversations about it, more serious conversations about it. We're actually having people, fairly prominent people and celebrities, talk about different impacts that they've had in mental health and the types of help that they've received. What can we do, and what are the districts doing? What is the WIAA doing to make sure that we incorporate mental health in these types of conversations?
Yeah, I mean, we're really fortunate now that's become more of a common conversation, where the Kevin Loves of the world and other people have come forward with what we've all known. People all struggle with it at some point in their life. And so by that, now our challenge is what kind of resources can we do? So we've recently partnered with University of Washington, their coaches education department, phenomenal group, Dr. Hannah there and Dr. Julie, really, really good people. We're very committed to this work. And so we've developed a couple classes, or they've developed them in partnership for us, that we have an amendment up to require all first and second year coaches. And it's really around how to work with adolescents and that core coaching component. So especially for our non-educator coaches, the kind of the formal training we got coming through. So one is to do have adults, be better prepared how to interact with students. The other piece we're working on right now is we're reviewing a few options of what we can do to train coaches to identify red flags. Basically, we can't expect a coach to be a mental health counselor, right? That's unfair. There may be some that are capable of that, but what we need to do is have coaches be able to identify when there's a potential issue and then know who to go to, right? Maybe it's the parent. All right. Ideally, the parent would be an asset in that to notify. Who do they notify within the school system to say, hey, I'm just not quite sure. Once in the last 2 weeks, he's really been kind of sour. He's been more violent. He's been more temperamental. He's been kind of detached. So we're working on, what's some training. So the key to that is we got to be able to do something that's sustainable. So we actually, if I can do a plug here, we have a proviso going in right now to the legislators for funding for the things we are talking about today. We're asking for, about $400,000 in grants for schools for safety equipment, wet bulb globes, portable AEDs that they could apply for, and we would fund them through that in partnership with OSPI. We're asking for funding to build out this curriculum and training program for coaches to address mental health concerns, right? And the advantage of working with us is we can build a program that's going to go to all schools, right? And what we deliver to those schools, and this is public, private, right? Doesn't matter, east side, west side. We serve everybody. And the advantage is they can then take what we're able to build and share throughout their school community. So rather than funding each school and having each school do it, now we're not going to be the experts on what it should be. We're going to go out and get those experts to work with us. We're just going to be the facilitators of this. So there's some real possibilities if the legislators support us on this funding this year. So we're working that part of the street. I never thought I'd be a lobbyist or a politician, but yeah, if we can get it done, this would be a tremendous asset for our student participants. We've talked about the pressure they're under with social media and everything being so public. So, let's do something to help the coaches, to help the students.
And this is something that you can also support, and maybe just contact your legislator, send them an email and say, hey, something, we hear there's a proviso being sponsored by the WIAA, supported because it's good for our kids. And it's actually when the kids are good, the community's good. So something to think about for those of you out there. This is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. I am Juan Cotto, Rainier Avenue Radio host and personality, and broadcaster of baseball. Looking forward to baseball season starting so we can get back out there and have a couple of games, hopefully, out there, and know that the weather will be warming up in the next couple of months, and Daniel and I will be at a high school near you. But we are your community radio station. We are your opportunity to share stories and to really build community. And we had a gentleman here this afternoon from the Emerald City newspaper outlets, and he was talking to us about the fact that this gives people an opportunity in the community to share. And that's what Tony B has been all about on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Mick, 3 years ago, there was this situation that really unprecedented. It was called COVID-19. And that threw off the entire world, the schedule of the world was altered in 2020, and we face this. It'll be interesting to see how the annals will look back on this as we're getting further and further away from 2020. But nevertheless, COVID is now something that we are all way too familiar with and have had to deal with. And I'm just wondering the impact that COVID had on athletics at the high school level, and what have you seen that has changed in the landscape over the last 3 years to kind of get back into the movement?
Yeah, we had that plea, just let them play, right? We'll do anything, just let them play. We won't even come watch, we'll let them play. Find a way to make them play. And we're back playing, and it seems like people came back angrier. Tensions, so when we talk about mental health, like, it will be interesting to see studies over time, right? You got to live long enough to really see this play out, of how the long-term impact. But it feels like people miss so much. I mean, could you imagine somebody walking in here right now, if Tony B came in again to interrupt and said, guys, we're not gonna do anything like we normally do until July of 2025, a year and a half. We'd be like, get out of here. Why are you wasting? And that's essentially what we did, right? So now you think through that, everything that was missed. Again, a young lady in our office, I was talking today in our staff meeting, we're talking about if you could spend one place in the world for a year, right, where would it be? And she talked about how when she was at NYU, she didn't get to do her study abroad, right? And you're thinking about how many experiences did people miss. So there's this anxiety from that, and we're seeing it play out. Like, if older brother or sister didn't play, no, younger brother. So we're dealing with way more emotion, but there's a lot of good things that have come out of it. We're streaming, electronic ticketing. People are more open to change, and so yeah, it just seems like people came back angry, and we're hoping that that dissipates as people get back out there and start to really enjoy what we have rather than be concerned about what we lost.
You and I've talked about this before, and you and I are both parents, and you talk about people coming back angry. Some of those are parents. They're angry over playing time. They're angry over an official's call. They're angry over official's non-call. They are angry over not getting a scholarship offer. They're angry over getting a scholarship offer that wasn't worthy of where they think their child should be. Parents are the first line of communication. They are the first line of sportsmanship. And I think you and I have discussed that ad nauseum. And they should be one of the first lines of the mental health and safety for our kids. How has the relationship with parents changed, and how is it working district by district and sometimes with the WIAA to make sure that the parent communication is good so their child has a great experience?
Yeah, each district's a little different. Some people see parents as the enemy. You've nailed it. They are the biggest potential asset for that child, whether they're directly involved with their students' lives or not. They're the biggest impact on their student. They're going to be the one that's always there for their student, whether they're an absentee parent or a drone parent that's right in the middle of it, right? And so, my experience is parents, we want to work with them, right? Not that we have to, we want to work with them. So it's really situational. I think what we see is we get a lot more parents coming directly to us rather than going through ADs. There's this lack of trust. When they want something, they want it right now. And, we're going to work through our systems and the people. And if people have honest and sincere questions, I always answer them. I'll send them an email. I'll pick up the phone. If they're just telling me how wrong we are, then thank you for your opinion. And, I'm going to read it, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because they're not asking, they're telling. So I think we're seeing that, throughout the whole system. There's a limited time they have with that student, so they feel that pressure. And depending on their experience getting there, if they invested all their time and money into that student and for this dream that they're chasing, and it doesn't look like it's going to come to fruition, there's a lot of frustration, and that's going to be directed at somebody. So if it's at us rather than the coach or the school, so be it, right? I mean, we can play that part. We can absorb that. We're not with that person day to day. But hopefully, they keep it in perspective. They love up their kid. Their kid has a great experience. And when their kid's playing, they come back and play again. So
Getting mad at the WIAA because you didn't win the lottery.
Yeah, I get mad at WI sometimes too. So that's all right.
And it's one of those things that we always talk about. I mean, we know we have aspirations and hopes and dreams and goals for our children, but the opportunity to play in a safe environment and have local community around you and support you, sometimes that may be the best that a child ends up getting, and something that's not all that bad.
Yeah, I mean, we just went through classifications where schools are deciding, they come in, some schools want to appeal saying that they have a hardship and they should be able to play down against smaller schools. And sometimes they get awarded that, sometimes they don't. And it's really interesting how even our own ADs, people we work with on a regular basis, personalize that, when they don't get what they want. So, you think about that from somebody doing it from a professional perspective, who you have a professional relationship with. Now amplify that with a parent. So we really work hard in the office to talk about, you can't personalize this. It's emotions. We work in an emotional one. You can't even if they personalize it, they're going to walk that back later, right? Especially when you see them. So, we have to let it kind of blow and go, and then pick up pieces and throw out that olive branch and try to bring them back. And over time, you start to build trust, and you get less of that over time. So, it's what we sign up for. It's part of governing anything. And we're the governance agency for interscholastic sports. It's a great honor, opportunity. Take the good with the bad.
Speaking of venues, I think the last time we saw each other was before the state football championship, if you can believe that.
Yeah.
How did it go? How did it go down there at Husky Stadium?
The Husky team, the assistant athletic director, Erickson, and their team were so good to us. That is a beautiful facility. And our students enjoyed that. The coaches enjoyed it. It just was a totally different feel. We still only had 2 locker rooms, just like we did at those high school sites. We had the same exact logistical problems. Guess how many complaints we got about locker rooms on this? We got 0. And so, but because there's other things, and I get it. They warmed up the field for us to go play on that thing, right? And so, it was a great experience. Our staff walked away from it. I mean, selfishly for us, we've always wanted to be on one site because we're setting up one stadium. We're not setting up 3. We're not managing 3 crews. So it was a home run for everybody, from the small schools to the big schools. And again, we cannot thank the Husky team more for what they provided for us.
Looking ahead, what initiatives, advancements are being considered to enhance safety measures in high school athletics?
One of the things we're looking at right now is telemedicine for athletic trainers, right? Not that they could necessarily diagnose a concussion or some type of internal injury. The Mayo Clinic in Minneapolis actually did this on a foundation grant from the NFHS. And so there's some companies now starting it. So we've started some conversations where essentially, if you're unable, this isn't to replace trainers. This is to supplement where we just can't get them. So if you're, in a rural area, or you're at a school where you just can't get one, and you have something happen, say a kid gets dinged and they're out, that they could get on an iPad with an actual doctor, right? A medically trained person, talk through what it is, and get the recommendation, like, you need to go, right? You need to go get seen. And they told a couple stories where there was one where a kid had got hit and he actually had a lacerated liver. And they didn't diagnose the lacerated liver. They just diagnosed there's something not right. You need to go to the doctor. Got him to the doctor. Another kid, it was even a more horrific story. He got hit in a very sensitive place. I won't give you the details of that. But they just basically, they're not checking the kid there. They just said, what you're describing, you better go in. And it really saved him. And so we're looking at some creative opportunities, like to be able to give a competent level of support for medical safety.
Your community radio station, our community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world, the Call to Conscious Museum, 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock every day here at the Columbia City Theater 4916 Rainier Avenue South. Bring your family, bring your children, bring your friends to learn more about the Black history of Seattle and connect with the legacy. And then obviously Saturday, 40th anniversary of one of the iconic businesses in our entire Seattle area community, Ezel's Chicken, 40th anniversary celebration. I'm sure there will be a few samples down here, but I know there's going to be a lot of friends and family. So, hey, for Tony B and for Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the WIAA, see you next week.